All right, let's talk about a weird quirk in our brains that almost all of us have. It's called the IKEA effect, and it's all about that strange feeling when putting in a little bit of work makes you absolutely fall in love with the result.
Oh, yeah. You know this feeling. You've spent hours, maybe, with one of those confusing manuals, that tiny little Allen key, and what feels like 1,000 little wooden pieces. But when that bookshelf is finally standing, it's not just a bookshelf, it's your bookshelf. And that amazing sense of pride, well, that's exactly what we're diving into today.
So, what is this feeling, really? It actually has a name, and digging into it tells us a whole lot about how our minds work. Yep, it's called the IKEA effect, and it's pretty simple, really. We just place a way higher value on things we had a hand in creating. The labor itself, even when it's super frustrating, somehow leads to us loving the final product that much more. And this isn't just some old wives' tale, it's real science. It was officially identified and given its name back in 2011 by a team of researchers from Harvard, Yale, and Duke. They really put this whole feeling under a microscope to figure out what was going on. Okay, so we know we value the things we build more, but how much more? Is it just a little bit? The researchers, they wanted to put a number on it. Just how much does our own sweat and effort actually inflate an object's value inside our own heads? Get this. The answer is a whopping 63%. In their main study, people who built their own simple piece of IKEA furniture were willing to pay 63% more for it than another group of people who were just offered the exact same item but already built. That's a huge difference. So how in the world did they prove this? Let's take a peek inside their pretty clever experiments to see how they pieced it all together. They basically ran 3 key tests. First up, the IKEA box study. That's where we get that 63% number. Second, they had people try to fold origami. The people who made the origami valued their own little creations 5 times more than outsiders did. And third, and this is crucial, they discovered a key rule. If you didn't actually finish building the thing, the effect vanished. You have to successfully complete it. Now, this is what I find so fascinating. Just look at the huge gap this chart shows. The builders thought their kind of clumsy-looking origami frogs and cranes were worth a decent amount of money. Meanwhile, the observers, well, they saw them for what they really were, basically just some crumpled up paper. And this quote just perfectly captures the bias, doesn't it? The researchers found that the builders weren't just feeling proud, no, they genuinely thought their creations were just as good as ones made by experts, and they honestly expected everyone else to agree with them. So that's the what. But what about the why? I mean, what is going on in our brains that makes a little bit of effort feel so incredibly valuable? Well, it seems to boil down to a few key things. First, we all have this deep, fundamental need to feel like we can make an impact on the world around us. Psychologists have a fancy term for it, affectance. Basically, when you finish a task, it proves you're competent, and that gives you a nice feeling of control. And then, of course, there's the social angle. We love showing off what we've made. And hey, sometimes building stuff is just fun. And trust me, this effect isn't just about assembling furniture. It pops up in some really surprising and sometimes high-stakes parts of our lives. Take your money, for instance. One study found that investors who personally picked out their own stocks, they built their own portfolio, were way less likely to panic and sell everything when the market took a nosedive. The labor they put in created this powerful sense of commitment to their choices. And in the business world, oh yeah, it can show up as something called not invented here syndrome. That's when managers totally overvalue ideas that came from their own team and might just dismiss a much better idea from the outside, all because they didn't put the work into creating it. And here's the wildest part. It's not even just a human thing. This bias is so deep-seated that scientists have seen it in animals. Seriously, studies have shown that even rats and starlings would rather work for their food than get the exact same food for free. The effort itself seems to make the reward taste better. So what does this all mean for you and me? Well, it turns out the IKEA effect is kind of a double-edged sword. So on one hand, it can be a real risk, right? It can make us think our house is worth way more because we personally laid that stone walkway. It can make us stick with a failing project just because we've poured so much of ourselves into it. But on the other hand, it's a huge reward. That effort is a very real source of happiness and satisfaction in our lives. And I think Psychology Today put it perfectly. That extra work that feels like such a pain in the moment, it might be the very thing that puts a smile on your face when it's all done.
So, saving yourself the labor might actually mean you're costing yourself a little bit of happiness.
So the next time you finish a project, doesn't matter if it's a piece of furniture, a garden, or even just a really complicated spreadsheet, just take a second and notice that little glow of pride. That's just your brain rewarding you for a job well done. So the real question to think about is, where in your own life is your labor leading to love?